Mohan, thank you very much for accepting our interview. First of all, I would like to know, how can entrepreneurs, independent entrepreneurs or startups to venture into AI? Where to start?
Well, if you're a startup, there are two ways to think about what you can do with AI. One is that you can actually become a startup that leverages AI to create or solve business problems. To give you a few examples, one company I'm working with has created an application to use machine learning to analyze resumes and match resumes with jobs. So they are now making a market between recruiters who are looking for qualified candidates and candidates who are creating their resumes. So that's an example of a machine learning application for human capital management. Another startup I'm working with is using the same machinery of natural language understanding to analyze legal documents. So they are in the market for automating contract review for legal documents. So as you look around today, whether it's agriculture or education or financial services or retail, there are so many potential applications that an entrepreneur or startup can look at that you can apply artificial intelligence to. So I think it's a very exciting time, and in fact, there are literally hundreds of startups that are using AI for very, very specific applications, ranging from healthcare to education to a variety of topics. So I think one of the exciting things about artificial intelligence today and the tools that are available is that it has really democratized this platform. So you don't need to be a big company. You can get open source tools, and the real intelligence that you bring is the domain. What problem am I going to solve? What industry am I going to look at? The technology is really becoming more of a commodity now. So I think it's a very exciting time for entrepreneurs.
So it's not, the technology for this is not expensive?
The technology in many cases, for the AI tools is free.
Okay.
It's open source tools.
Okay.
You can get started very quickly. You can use commercially available or openly available APIs and tools from Google, from Amazon, from Microsoft, from IBM, and plus you'd also can get very cheap computing capacity in the cloud from Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. So I think it's, I like to say that we are living in a Lego block world. All the Lego blocks are available to you. You just have to decide, am I going to build a bridge or a house or a car? And what problem am I going to solve? And then the tools are available.
Thank you. What is the most disruptive yet successful case of AI that you've witnessed?
I think in terms of being disruptive today, I would say that autonomous vehicles is perhaps going to be the most disruptive, and you've already seen it in implementation with notably with Tesla, where they have autopilot that uses AI to allow you to drive on a highway without the driver being involved. So also AI is being very successfully used in the insurance industry. For claims fraud and claims investigation, and also in the financial services in general, credit card, whether it's fraud prevention or customer segmentation. So I think financial services, retail, and autonomous vehicles are sort of three areas where I've seen a lot of advancement.
Great. What is the key barrier people have in using AI?
I think that there are several barriers in being able to successfully use AI. Perhaps the biggest one to start with is data. Being able to get access to the data that you need, and the data should be clean. It shouldn't be missing data. There should not be, duplicate data. So that whole data, something people don't realize is that in an AI project, 80 to 90% of the time is actually spent in data hygiene. in cleaning the data and getting it into a model. Only 10% of the time is actually spent in building the model.
Ah, that's a very interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of homework that needs to be done in making sure that you are getting the data, cleaning it up, organizing it, and then, and making sure that you have a continuous refresh of the data. So that's one challenge. Related to that is that you need to make sure that you have the appropriate protections for privacy and customer consent, that the data has been collected in a way that is legal, in a way that respects privacy laws, and so on. And I think that the third area where I'm seeing problems is that the companies often don't have the internal talent, the skill sets inside the company to sort of build their own data science teams and then or AI teams. So talent is desperately short in this space because this technology has moved very, very quickly, and it takes time to train people and to put them through college and train them on analytics. So manpower is becoming another problem.
Wow. Who is already using it but not doing it in a correct or productive way?
Well, I think that one sort of fairly well-known case of AI not delivering results was the big experiment or project that IBM did with IBM Watson for medical diagnosis, where they used an AI-based platform to come up with diagnosis for cancer and other sorts of conditions. And that was a 5-year project, and it failed to produce the results that were expected because in many cases the doctor said that I already knew this was the diagnosis, so it didn't help me. And in the cases where they disagreed, the algorithm disagreed with them, they didn't kind of believe it. So in either case, the algorithm was not very useful for them. So I think that using an approach that says I'm going to substitute algorithms for doctors' judgment, that is not the right way to think about it. It really is algorithms working side by side to help doctors make decisions. So I think that sometimes companies have jumped into implementations without thinking through the maturity of their understanding of the domain and the data. So we're still in the very early stages. A lot of experimentation is still going on. But I think one has to be careful to sort of say that AI can replace human beings. I don't think that's going to happen in the future. Near future, it's going to be actually collaborative, sort of human plus robot as opposed to human versus robot.
You showed us a case of qualitative research. Do you think it's going to eventually substitute human research, or is it going to be complementary?
In the qualitative research application that I shared, artificial intelligence is used to actually analyze data that has been collected from human beings. So you are actually recording what shoppers are doing, you're recording what consumers are doing, and then you're using the algorithm to find patterns in the data. So that is a job that actually human beings can't perform too well. As I was suggesting, that if you have 100 hours of video and you're asked to look at things that might be significant in that video that relate to your brand or your product, it's very difficult to do that manually. So that analysis actually was not even being done, or it was being done in a very crude way. So I see in that case AI actually solving problems that were very difficult or impossible to solve before. So in that sense, it's a new application of that we weren't doing in the past. So I think that while in other cases it may replace human judgment that is currently being done by human beings, such as customer segmentation research and so on. We used to do that manually. Now it can be done in an automated way.
Okay. Do you know any case that is being AI is being applied in Mexico or in Latin America successfully, or not yet?
Well, I think that we actually have had conversations with, specifically I've spoken with Banco Itaú and they are actually using AI in a variety of areas in customer service, in campaign design, in segmentation. So I think that in the banking industry and the insurance industry, as well as of course the multinational subsidiaries in Latin America are starting to use it. So now, one thing that one has to be somewhat careful about is that when we talk about natural language processing and natural language understanding, language is important. So what the algorithm does is it does semantic analysis of the language, and that semantic analysis the vocabulary has to be built in different languages. So today, for instance, your Google Assistant, obviously it speaks Spanish, it understands Portuguese, understands a number of languages. But if you're trying to build an industry-specific application, you may need to tune it. So I think that now, fortunately, Spanish is a language that's widely spoken, so that's not an issue. But as you get to Asia, where you have many different languages, and you also have 2-byte characters, Japanese, Chinese, are a little bit more difficult to analyze. So language does become a bit of a constraint. So some of the things will have to be localized. But other than that, there's nothing stopping Latin American companies from leveraging these tools, and particularly because they're available so widely. Now, the one thing, of course, is that in the US market, where labor is more expensive, the cost saving in substituting a customer service representative with an algorithm is greater than it would be in an emerging market. So the business case may be slightly less compelling, but still, I think there's a lot of potential, and I think the future is pretty bright.
Mohan, thank you very much for sharing your experience and your knowledge with us. It's quite a pleasure to have you here in Mexico.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.